Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner of YouTube. Thank you for joining me. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, or you're new to the channel and you like what you see, please consider subscribing, clicking that button. That's all it costs you, is that little bit of energy to click the button. It's completely free. And if you want notifications of when I release videos, click the bell, or ring the bell, I should say, perhaps. Thank you also for all the lovely comments that people are leaving, and the things that are turning into like little conversations. It's fab. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for all the thumbs up as well. That means a lot. Just clicking on that like button, it really does help get my channel shared with other people of similar interests. Now today is likely to be a bit of a, well, it could be a bit of a disaster. I have been using these. In fact, this is the third time I've tried to make a video this morning, and I've only been at it for an hour. It's nearly midday. I've actually only been up for about an hour and a half. I just had to go back to sleep when I woke up early this morning. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. So my day is gone, essentially. So it's a day of creativity. But I had these NeoColour II water-soluble pastels, in wax pastels, in the delivered yesterday, and I'd seen them in some books. I'd got some art journaling books at the weekend because of somebody asking me about drawing whimsical figures and things like that. So I'm looking for inspiration and so on for myself, as well as I need to look back on some Domestica courses I did or started doing, because I don't think I've ever finished any of them. It's like I've taken what I need, and that's good enough for me. But I'd seen these NeoColour. I've seen these often over the years, and I've never really indulged in them. I thought, But when I saw something the other day, and it said they work a bit like watercolour, but unlike watercolour, the colours don't fade when they dry. They remain bright and vibrant. You hardly notice the difference. I thought, that sounds exactly what I need, because if you've been watching me for a while, you know how I put really bright, vibrant colours down in water-soluble media, whether it's watercolour inks or whether it's watercolours themselves. And when they dry, you go, oh, what's happened there? So these could be the solution to my problems, but they're also something I want to try for making backgrounds. I'll show you what I mean, and I'll show you a couple of things, because I'm learning. So I was dabbling yesterday. You get something new, you've got to have a go. I finished this morning, and it is my "We All Must Stand Together" piece of hand lettering with my entangled style of background. And I coloured this paper with distress inks, and it's very grungy. There's not a lot of bright colour there. I like it for what it is, but I want some more colour. Whether I use the NeoColours to add colour, or whether I go back to the distress inks and use the colours I used on this, I don't know. I'm tempted to use these, or alcohol markers. I'm tempted with alcohol markers, but I haven't made my mind up. This is an experiment, so it's not anything that's going to get published or, you know, offered for sale or anything like that. It's a learning piece for me, so I can do things on it and mess it up, because I know I can always redo it or recreate something similar. But one of my experiments yesterday with the NeoColours ended up in me making a bit of a mess. I won't go into the long story, but I ended up cutting 1-inch squares out of the coloured piece, and I did that with a square punch, a paper punch like this. It's 1 inch, because I am incompetent with scissors or what do you call them? Cutting tools, craft knives. I just can't use them. It's not that I hurt myself, it's just that they just don't work for me properly. I'm okay if it's simple things, but otherwise forget it. And a paper trimmer. So I used a paper trimmer for the piece behind. So I did some hand lettering. I thought that looked great until I stuck it on this one. I thought, oh, I'm not sure about those colours together. And then I thought, oh, let's make a background for it. This will give me a good reason to experiment. So this is the first background. I thought complementary colours would work nicely together. And I'm not so sure. And I did put some gold ink in this to give some shimmer, which I really like. So I'm going to be interested to see how this works when I draw over it, whether I use this or not. But I like this idea of doing individual letters and then mounting them on these panels. It's a bit like the drawing I've just shown. So then I thought, well, let's try another one. Let's try it slightly differently. And I thought limey greens would work nicely to pick this up. I'm not sure. Reminds me of Monet's water lilies, though. Then I thought, right, okay, let's have a look at pinky orangey colours. That's okay. That actually worked. Actually, that does work quite nicely. I could do with some of the lemony green in here, because I know I can put colour on the top of NeoColours, and the NeoColour IIs. They are opaque or translucent, depending on how much you water them down, and so they will stay on top and not create mud. So I might be able to do that and pop some green in areas. And of course, we're looking at this, these colours are quite insipid now, so I'd like to have brighter colours there, which isn't a problem. There's plenty of ways I can add colour to that. And then one of my other attempts at creating a video resulted in this one. I really love this background. I love the brightness, the vibrancy of it. I tried and experimented with things, and it sort of goes, but it sort of doesn't. I can't really put it that way. It's too wide. So I don't know what I'm going to do, other than I have another piece of paper here. I have my NeoColours. I have my plastic. This is an old cutting plate for a die cut machine for paper. Just adjust that slightly. That's a bit better. I won't get all of this on screen, I don't think so, but I'll try and keep to the middle. And I've got some pieces of Ranger cut and dry foam. These react with water. You can use a brush to spread them out. You can use your finger. I've seen people use baby wipes. I found that they destroy the surface of my paper though, which don't want the surface destroyed, because I want it to, I want to be able to draw on it. So let's have a look. I'm trying to decide what colours to use here. This is the problem. I've got 40 colours. I think I'm going to stick to a pretty much monochrome kind of scheme. So I'm just going to dot some areas around. This is salmon pink, like so. This is rose, it's called, but these are from, the colours in this tin are separated in sort of like brights, pastels, and then you've got neutrals, I suppose. So those are really quite nice. This is lovely as well. This is the pastel-y purple, which is mauve. She says, like so. And then I'm going to have a look at what happens. Now I'm just putting some water from a spray bottle onto my mat, my place here. And then I'm just going to use that tiny bit of water just to move these around. And you can see how quickly these react with just the tiniest bit of water, and how easily those scribble lines disappear as well. I'm not going to try and get this smooth. I just want the scribbly lines out more than anything. And the colours are actually blending nicely together. I think so. As in, I was worried that the pinky orange might not work very well with the pinky purple, but it's fine. It seems to work quite nicely. A bit more water. And the nice thing about using this cut and dry foam for me is that it limits how much water I put on the paper, which means I'm less likely to get a lot of warping of the paper. There is some, especially as I'm going to use a heat tool to dry it. In between layers, right. Over here I just need to, I've got some areas that just need a little bit more work with a bit of water. Did I mention this is mixed media paper? It's by Artway, and it comes in a sort of a cardboard wallet. It's recycled paper, and it comes in a cardboard wallet of, I think it was 50 sheets, and it wasn't that expensive. And it's very smooth in texture. A lot of mixed media paper has got quite a big, you know, quite a hefty tooth to it. So you can see that this is already, I quite like that as it is. Let me get those words. Now those colours actually fit the background of this quite nicely, except that there are areas, it's a bit insipid, so actually this heat tool is quite quiet, so it won't take me a moment just to dry this out. It's a craft heat tool, not one that people would use for do-it-yourself. So it's got quite a weak or low-powered motor, but you get a fair amount of heat out of it as well. So I'm just heating behind it because that helps to flatten it back out. You have to evaporate water from both sides, believe it or not. Let me turn that off properly. And just flatten it out by rolling it back on itself. And yeah, it's a bit wrinkled, but again, I'll put this under some heavy items in a little while. Okay, I've got some areas here where I want to add some more colour to. So I'm using some of this rose colour in places. I'm going to use some of this mauve around the edges. I know I used this salmon-y colour in places, didn't I? And perhaps put some round here, a bit there. Could do with a bit more there. And then perhaps a little bit of this yellowy colour, just for another bit of variation here. Let's see how this works. The worst that happens is I go, oh, Angela, what on earth were you thinking? And then put it aside to cut squares or little bits out of to be used, like the letters I've done. Or to put small pictures on as frame, you know, to frame them. I haven't done that for a long while, actually. So working like this reminds me of all the experiments I did with mixed media and card making and dangle designs and stuffing bullet journals and what have you in some ways. And I go, oh, I used to do that. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Bit more water here just to perhaps try to fill those little areas in there. Oh, excuse me. That's not too shabby, is it? Now that, I think, works. I could do with more of the pinky colour and orangey colour, pinky orangey, round this middle bit, which I think I'll do. Again, I'm just going to give this a quick heat. I'm not going to turn the video off and start it again here, because it happens quite quickly, because I'm not using a lot of water. Oh gosh. Okay, give that a chance just to cool down. There. I'm also going to add some of the purpley colour in, I think, towards the edges, and some of the salmon-y colour as well, because I think that'll work quite nicely, just to give a darker region where I'm going to sit this upon. Oh gosh, sorry, excuse me, I don't know what's the matter. It might be the heat tool just kicking some dust up. Just cleaning my surface of this off so that we're not going to get too much in the way of ickiness, you know, cross-contamination of colours and blending them all to one, trying to keep these colours here. I do find that heat setting does stop the lower layers from moving too much. Heat setting. I think these will always remain water reactive on paper, perhaps, unless they're sealed, but I do think the heat setting does help with keeping things quite nice. Okay, I am going to give this a quick zuzz again. I'm sure you can cope for a moment because it doesn't take too long. As I say, I don't use a lot of water. If I was soaking this wet for drippage and allowing, you know, lots of colour to flow as if, you know, you've got water or whatever dripping all over the place, it'd be different. But I'm not doing that. So this just works nicely. Okay, so less than a minute. These would make gorgeous backgrounds for Zentangle as well, wouldn't they? Not that I'm saying you have to go out and buy these. There are cheaper alternatives. There's the, I think it's Dinah Wakely scribble sticks from Ranger. You've got the distress crayons that work in a similar way. And there are other companies that make something similar. It's just that the cheaper they are, they'll work in a similar way, but they're less likely to be as highly pigmented. So if you wanted to buy a small set for not a lot of money, just to try out, that's what I'd recommend. Or work out what colours you would like to use most of, and instead of buying a set, look for open stock of the NeoColour IIs. NeoColour are water resistant wax pastels, so they will not move with water. They're more like a Crayola, but a high-end Crayola with lots of pigment and softer and easier to use. But, you know, but actually I am quite happy with that. I am. I think that works quite nicely. I think I could have some darker colour around the middle here, perhaps just to help. Well, do I need to? Because I've got the gold around the edge of this, which I added with a product called Treasure Gold or Alchemy Wax from Imagination Crafts. In here there's it's metallic wax, and you just take a tiny amount on the tip of your finger or on a edge of foam or paintbrush or whatever, and you can use it to add to the edges. I use my finger because it gives a really uneven, I don't know if you can see above the exclamation mark how uneven that is and along the edge, and I'm happy with that. I could also use a sticky ink like Versamark and what do you call them, embossing powders, and dip the edge into it and use a heat tool to melt the embossing powder, and that would work quite nicely. But yeah, that's it. That's the one I wanted. There we are. I got there in the end. And for all the others now, I've got lots of things I can do things with. So give me a moment while I put this to one side. I'm not going to work on this. I want this to dry fully, and I want it to become nice and flat. So I'll be back in a moment once I've tidied things up. That's it, I'm back. Mostly tidied, well, as much tidied away as I want it to be tidied away. Because I can see me spending much of the rest of the day playing with this and creating these wonderful backgrounds. I forgot to scan this in, but I always say that it doesn't matter whether I scan something or not. If I make use of it, then that's all that matters. So I've taken this and I've cut two 3.5 by 3.5 inch squares out of this, same size as Zentangle tiles. 3.5 inches is about, I think it's about 9 centimetres. I could be wrong. Is it 9? Yeah, it's a tad under 9 centimetres, so 9 centimetres by 9 centimetres. And before I start drawing on them, I'm going to take this, which is a black marker pen. I'm also going to put my glasses on because I'm beginning to feel like I'm going a bit cross-eyed here. And I'm just going to run this along the edge like that. And can you see it just makes such a subtle difference? You get this tiny amount of black overlap, you know, coming over to the front, you know, the back, and it just gives that little edge there. And I really like that. I could do this with, say, distress inks with a piece of cut and dry foam, but I quite like using the alcohol markers because A, they're permanent, and also I don't get that spillover I'd get with a piece of cut and dry foam, and I don't want that today. But I chose these. They've got some gold on them. So I added some gold ink while these are NeoColour IIs, while they were wet, and just let it do its stuff. Sometimes though I had to draw it with the brush because it just wouldn't, either had too much water or it dried too much, or a combination of the two. So I'm going to draw on the top of this, and I am going to create a square in pencil, and I'm going to use my cutting mat as a guide for getting my square about 1 centimetre by about 1 centimetre in. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's nice if it, you know, I like that equidistance. And I'm leaving that centimetre by centimetre, though this one went a bit skew with there. There, that's a bit better. All around, because I want some of this lovely background to show through. Okay, I'm going to do a grid pattern on this. And again, I think I'm going to use my pencil to pop this in. And I'm going to do this way, and I'm going to double it up. I'm going to go this way and double those up. So there's a gap between them. And I think I may split these into 2s as well. And I'm going to use Thomas Padrus's Cangula to fill this grid in. It's a very uneven grid, which is fine. But I'm going to go and draw all of my corners in, or the out, you know, the box sections. Oh, heck. I wanted that over there. Idiot. Okay. I was going to do Thomas Padrus's Cangula, but I'm now going to work in a different way, obviously now. Sheesh. Honestly. I've had trouble spelling words. Even when I've penciled a word in, I've managed to either miss a letter out or swap letters round. And this is worrying me just a tad because it's not like me. But it may just be that I'm not properly focused on what I'm doing. My head sparkling off in a completely different direction. Because it does that from time to time. This is this is mixed media paper, and that means that it's not a very smooth surface to begin with, and now it's had water on it, it's become even bumpier. So some of my lines are wobbly and wonky because that's the nature of the paper. The other thing, I'm doing this because I want you to know that these Neocolours you can draw over the top of. And if anything, they make the paper lovely and smooth, apart from when it's lumpy and bumpy like this. I can feel the slickness that the Neocolours bring to the paper, which is lovely. It means my pen glides easily, and I rather like that. Okay, I now have to figure out what kind of pattern I can pop into these. I could do well with the circle in the middle and the flowers coming off, or the propellers coming off. I do well an awful lot though. Could do one where I do the half rise shapes around the edge. That could be interesting. I could do one where I pop rise shapes in, and I'm going to alternate them on this row like so, and on this row as well. So we're zigzagging our way across in both directions, as it were. So we're getting some of these arrangements of 4 squares are like, it's almost a circle here. Here it's more like a flower. And we'll have combinations of this all the way through this particular grid. I'm sure this will be one tangle pattern or another, but I don't know. To work out what happens in the next row down, I look at this, where this is in the corner, and then I start from the corner directly underneath, if that makes sense. We're also working in diagonals. Can make sense of it in lots of different ways. And as I start to add pattern to this, the imperfection of my squares begins to vanish just a bit. There we go. Now then, I've got choices what to do in the corners of these, and I think I'm going to stick with an idea that comes from, well, I was going to do Cangular, and this is sort of part of Cangular, isn't it? Where I've got these here, but it's not Cangular. But the elements, these elements are the same. These kind of square with a black square within work nicely. Oh, there's my phone pinging. I guess there's emails just pinging in. It happens from time to time. It's a very noisy ping. It's not usually that noisy. Whether my microphone picked that up or not, I don't know. But, oh, there's another ping. This will be just nice enough here. The paper's a bit wrinkled still, so again I'm going to pop this under a heavy book or underneath my drawing board with that, my basket or my felt. It's actually a felt caddy. It's a caddy made of felt rather than plastic or anything. And it's full of bits and bobs for art. I meant it to be portable around the house. Well, it mostly spends most of its time near my desk because it's become very heavy. But I will have a sort out of it, and at some point in time and start to reorganise things for storage or for, you know, not necessarily storage, what do you call it? Organising things and putting them on shelves and what have you so I can find them. But they're out of the way and neatly. It's not that things are not neat here, it's just that things are a bit cluttered at the moment still. But I will have a declutter at some time. And by decluttering, it doesn't mean throwing out. Although I think I may need to rehome some things. So nearly done this part of the pattern. Already it's beginning to look really quite interesting. I like the contrast with the black, between the black and the background. Black always makes colours look so much brighter. Not this blue needed any help in that. And I haven't lost much of the gold either, which is good. Beginning to wonder what would happen if I ironed this. I know with Neocolours that quilters and fabric textile artists use them to colour fabric and to set the colour after they've used water to put the colour in where they want it to paint with the colour on the fabric. They iron it. And when it's been washed, some of the colour will fade out, but it's still pretty permanent. So I don't know whether the same would happen with paper. Let me just see if I can get this to lie a bit flatter for me. Not a chance. Okay, so I need to do something inside these leaf shapes in the middle, and I think I'm going to go to my favourite thing to do, which is to aura inside these. Rather than constantly twisting and turning my paper, I'm going to work along the diagonals, like so. And then I can turn my paper so I can work on these ones in a way that it's comfortable for my hand to move. This was really unexpected. I didn't mean to go down this route in this video today, but you never know how things will turn out. And I do want to do something in the centre of these, so I think I'm going to pop just a bead in there. So it's a circle, but I leave a little area at the top for a highlight. Trying to pop them towards the centre of this space. It doesn't have to be exact. Where I see I haven't drawn lines very well, I can go and make adjustments as I do this as well. Bit of an adjustment there. Not so easy on this textured paper to draw nice smooth circles, but that's okay. The important thing is that it's not just in one place, it's right the way across the pattern, so it becomes part of the pattern. I think as this Zentangle people say, it adds character. And it certainly does. Now this could do with some shading, but I'm not going to do it. I know, somebody's going to say, oh, it would look better with shading. I know it most probably would. Excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with me. But I am going to add some highlights though to these little seeds, and there is a reason I want to do that. I want to see how they react with the Neocolour, how this gel pen reacts with that, whether it picks any of that colour up or not. If it doesn't pick the colour up, it's an absolute bonus, let me tell you. I guess it depends whether I scrub around with it. So there's little white highlights there. And I think what I'll do for shadow though is, rather than adding shadow, let me have a look at thickening lines. So let me have a look. Got one gel pen at the bottom there that hasn't dried quite yet, so if I'm careful, should be all right working above it. So I'm going to increase the thickness of the lines at the bottom of these leaf shapes. Part of me thinks I'll be better off using a broader pen. So, and again here, so instead of using graphite as shadow, I'm using the thickness, the weight of the line to do that, to add some volume to it. So sorry, Chen Keith, I know you love pencil graphite for shadows, but today I'm using this idea of adding shadows in the way I would if I was doing hand lettering, and adding that shadow around. Like this. So we do that one as well. That would have streamlined the process if I'd worked out this way of doing it. But it's okay. All right, so I've got all of those. So that's lifted those up. And then what I want to do is, am I going to make these stand out that way, or shall I make them look, I think I'll make them look like they're set behind by doing this. So I'm making these lines thicker, but inside that outside line, so that more of this overlaps that area. So it's the top and the right we're going for. And because this is thicker and narrows this area here, it looks like we've got shadow inside. So hopefully this will give the impression that this area is well underneath that leaf shape. So perhaps it'd be easier if I did all of them at the top in one go, and then come back and do the other side, because I don't have to stop and think so much. I was starting to think I had to put lines on the different side to where I wanted them. Okay, so that works. So it's these ones I'm going to do here now, at the top again, making sure that they seem to go behind the leaves. I said this was an idea I picked up from hand lettering. It's not. I've always done this kind of thing. It's just that hand lettering has just brought it to the forefront in my mind a bit more. Or recognise the overlap. There we go. So I don't know if that works. Hopefully it does. But One last thing I think I want to do. I wish I had a blue pen, a fine blue. I do have, but I'm not going to go digging out, so I'm just going to use black. And I think I will use some lines around these, like this, to increase the contrast. So again, I'm going to do all of these ones that go in this direction. And those little bits of gold will shine through the black. They won't be totally obscured. So I'm going to do these in the diagonal again. Follow them down the diagonal paths. I've got one here to do. Turn my paper, and then I can do these others. So start here. And I'm using an 01 pen for this. For the rest of the pattern I used an 05. But I find the 01 for this is just perfect. It adds enough shadow through pattern to lift that little bead up a little bit. And you just might notice I just go and make slight adjustments to areas that I notice as I do this that might need a bit of a touch up, as it were. Not to get perfection, but just to make sure it's as good as it gets. Given the paper, its rippled nature because it's been wet, the rough texture on the surface of the paper. I'm using a fine pen which will get caught on that texture. But I like that just as it is. Don't need any more shadow. Well, I don't think I do. Though I could. But no, I'm not going to. I was thinking about putting some shadow in these sections here. But then I've got them on, I haven't got them on the other side because I've kept consistent with where the set-in parts of these squares are in each square. So I could actually, because actually, yeah, we can. So I'm going to draw diagonals opposite, in the opposite, you know, from the other corners to this, and I'm just going to fill these sections in with fine lines as if we've got a shadow going on there. So I will pop that there even though I don't need that one, but it makes it a consistent feature then. So here we'll do it this way. Like so. And then this way. Like so. Yeah, that'll work. So and here. So does that make much of a difference? Hang on. Let me zoom in. There you are. Been doing all of that. I forget I have that option. So I think this does make a bit of a difference. It is having these shadows or adding some line pattern here. to increase that sense of shadow. Nearly done. This has turned out to be a lot longer video than I expected, and it's taken an unexpected turn with me doing this as well. But it's all about me experimenting and learning about these Neocolours and checking that pens will happily work and not get wrecked when I draw on top of them. Now that does work a lot better, doesn't it? I think so. So if I zoom out, let's pop one of my other papers underneath here, or some of the others. So we got some colour, and just a reminder of what I've done today for you to see. That one is fab. Oh, none of it's going to sit straight, flat, is it? Perhaps a bit too enthusiastic here for different colours, so we'll leave that one. So this is what I did in today's video. So we have Neocolour painted backgrounds, and I've got I've done a Zentangle tile. I have. I know it's shocking, and the gold does shine through. Catches. There you go. Which is quite fun. It doesn't make too much of a dark shadow, that ink, as others do. So I'm quite pleased with that. So there we are. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you'll give making backgrounds like this a go and using them for drawing on, whether it's tiles, whether it's whimsical things, writing. You know, this is 3.5 inches, 9 centimetres square. Cut this down into bigger squares or use the whole sheet. But I know what I'm doing with that one anyway. That's already decided. So all it leaves for me to say is thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope to see you back here again. So take care, look after yourselves, and be creative. Bye-bye for now.